access to large amounts of compute has never been possible until today. And some of you might not know this, the cloud was actually born in Cape Town. 2004, a bunch of South Africans begged, convinced Jeff Bezos to build the cloud. They came back to Cape Town. They built it and they launched it in 2006. So South African brains behind that, which is really, really cool, something we're very proud of. So democratization or access to compute, large amounts of compute, and then data. They estimate that we'll generate 170 zettabytes. One of you, I see at the back there's like 170 zettabytes. I have no idea how much that is. So I worked that out, right? If you take a small portable hard drive and you stack it, how high do you think that is? If we had to stack it and it was equal to the height of Table Mountain, it's Table Mountain times 2.8 million. That's how much data we're going to generate this year alone. And so those two things is what brought about the explosion in artificial intelligence. So access to data and access to large amounts of compute. And so today, you can, with generative AI, generate new content. And I'll show you that today as well. But the point here is that it generates new content. It creates these tokens, and then it kind of makes things up. And we often refer to that as hallucinations, but it was actually designed to do that. These things are powered by large foundational models, which we'll talk about. But it's a subset of artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence has been around, as I said, for 2,000 years, formalized 50 years ago, or in the 1950s, 70 years ago, that's how old I am. So 70 years ago, this thing was kind of founded. And today we have deep learning, and a subset of deep learning is generative AI. So we have what we call narrow AI, which we've been doing for a long time. So that's every time you go onto Facebook and you think Facebook is listening to you, but it's actually predicting the things you might be interested in. Or you go to Amazon.com and it tells you these are the items you might want to purchase. There's kind of simple problems to solve. We have more complicated things that like drive your car, that know what gear to move the car into, and drive the car optimally and efficiently. But today we have even more complicated machine learning. These models are really, really big. So to generate an image, for example, takes a lot of compute, over 2,000 GPUs. And so this kind of AI, to make it accessible, we package it in something we call a foundation model. And these foundation models for text are really, really simple. All they do is they try and predict the next word in a sequence. So we speak about hallucinations, but it's designed to do that. So if I gave you the sentence, there's one small step forward. And if you've been around long enough, you might say people or horses, but probably man. There's one giant leap for mankind. And so that's the reason why we predict the sentence, is because it appears a lot on the internet. It appears a lot in the books we have, and so on. So these things are trained on that. And so this training, as I mentioned, is a lot of compute. And that thing we call a foundation model. And it can do a lot of things. So it can do text generation. I'm going to stand back so I can actually read my own slides. You can do summarization, you can do Q&A, you can do a whole bunch of these things. And traditionally, they were all separate models. We've put them together to form one big foundation model that can do all these things for you, which is what makes ChatGPT so powerful. The problem here again is that ChatGPT is trained on the data that it's seen on the internet. And so when you ask it questions it doesn't know, it can't give you the valid answer and starts hallucinating. It starts predicting things, right? And so there's a bunch of these models that are available today. You can do text to text, text to image. You can do text to video, is the latest one. You can also do things like image to text as well. So you can give it an image and say, describe this, and it can do that for you as well. And we have hundreds of thousands of customers on AWS today using machine learning. But what I want to show you today is something that makes these models more usable. So Umdoku can go and embed this into the applications that they're building. So imagine the Amusement application that's text-based. You can just ask it, what events are happening, and it can tell you immediately. Or show me the tickets that I've purchased, and it can do that also. Or give me a summarization of the lineup for an event that's coming up in a week's time. That would be great. So I know you want images on the tickets, that's coming. I know you want a calendar, that's coming. But you can take this to the next level, right? I'm going to show you that a bit later. And you can do it for a whole bunch of things. But some of these things are really complicated. So you have to either choose the model, you have to train the model, customization, and just now I'll show you a demo which makes this even easier. So we introduced something last year called Amazon Bedrock. It's a managed machine learning service. So we have a bunch of others. We have partners with a few companies, and we make that available through SageMaker. But this is even easier to use. So I know ChatGPT is there and it's nice, you can talk to it. You can do the same through Bedrock, so it's completely managed. But what's nice about this is it runs in your environment, you control the data, you control how the models work, and you can also link it to other tooling, which I'll show you in a bit. So Bedrock, just how does it work? You choose the large language models you want to use. We have a number of partners, and what we're doing is we're making the best of breed models available to you to consume. You can then customize it with your own data. You can also give it access to your data. So if you've got ticket information, you can say, what was the ticket I purchased? Or can I purchase a new ticket? Or I'd like to upgrade to a VIP access, for example. You could do that. And the partners that we've chosen are the best partners in the world when it comes to machine learning. So we've got AI21, we've got Anthropic, Cohere, Claude's models on there from Anthropic. We've got Meta, so everyone knows who Facebook is. We've got Stability AI, which we're funding. And a lot of these partners, like Anthropic, have come up through the ranks and we're funding them. So Anthropic, we funded $4 billion last year and another $2.7 billion in the beginning of this year. And we believe that not one model is going to rule the world. We believe that customers should have a choice, which is why we're bringing these models to you. So while some of these models are European-centric, some are financial-centric, and we believe that maybe there'll be a company that comes to the EIP tomorrow that'll bring a more African-centric model. That's a hint. Start working on that. Okay, so the differentiator is always your data. Everybody today can go use OpenAI. So you can use these things, but it doesn't help you. So your data is what's going to make you excel and be out there. And so these foundation models I mentioned, one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind, they generate text. They're not very smart. But imagine you can give them tool access. Imagine you give them access to the internet. Imagine you can get them to purchase things on your behalf. You can make really, really smart agents. And so you can configure these foundation models to access very specific data sources, your own data sources, library, or even the internet. And you can do this with very simple to use API calls. And all of it is managed within inside the AWS environment. So I'll show you now a very quick demo, and then I can show you in the console as well. You basically select your model, you provide it basic instructions, all in English. You don't need to be a programmer. And then you select the data sources that you want to access. Once you've done that, you specify the actions you want it to complete, and it'll go ahead and do that for you. So here's some human text. Maybe I want to return an exchange an order within a few days. How does this actually work? So what we do is we take that text, we create something called an embedding. It's just a number, it's nothing special. And we can find that data in a list of documents. We can then bring back the document, read the document, and then go and extract the answer out of the document. That's called retrieval augmented generation. And so I'm going to show you how you can use that in an application as well. Each one of those words is a number in a multi-dimensional space. So you'll see there you've got cat on top, you've got kitten at the bottom, and old is on the right. So this is like a relationship that the computer figures out, which is quite useful. Traditionally, and I'll show you why this is useful, traditionally what we did when we searched for things, right, you would type in a word, so you can see there golf shoes. Now you get a golf bag, you get shoes, you get a golf club, you get a whole bunch of other things that are related to the word golf. It's completely useless. So imagine you're looking for an event and you type in something like food, but you want it to be paired with wine. Now you're going to get all the food events, you're going to get all the wine events, but you want these two things together. So you want like semantic searching. And so with semantic searching, it makes that even easier. But what happens if the word golf is not even in the search, or food is not even in the search? How can you actually read the content and understand it? And that's the example I gave just now when you said, well, what's the latest in the South African elections? You need to know that that's politics. You need to know I need to look at a news site. And so there's a lot of things that need to go on here for that to work. And I'll show you later in the demo how that actually fits together. So what we can do is we can start off with something called knowledge bases. We can connect a whole bunch of data to a database where we vectorize the data. This data doesn't have to be text documents. It could be your database of events that are happening. It could be tickets that you've purchased. So show me all the tickets that I've purchased, or show me tickets that I might be interested in based on the history of the tickets I've purchased. You could then do that as well. So you can automate API orchestration. So how do I find data and where can I go find the sources? So in this case, we have a travel company. So I can go to the travel company, you can see there's a chatbot. but it's context driven, so it knows who I am because it keeps history. Bedrock does that today as well. So I can say I need a place in Miami for a family vacation. And so it can go ahead and look at a database of all the places in Miami, but it can go and find things that are family related. This is not just a search. This is actually looking at the documentation, understanding what that thing is, and giving you back options. And then you can interact with it. So I need it in August. Yes, there's a ballet festival happening in August. Maybe interested in that. What discounts are there? So it understands the word discount and can go look in this environment and go find all those discounts and say, well, between this date and this date, there is the discount. So maybe I'm interested in purchasing that. So say, give me the lowest price for that. It goes and fetches that from an environment. So you can see here that it can pull data from different sources. So maybe the internet, maybe brochures, maybe a database of prices. And when I'm ready, I can just say, go ahead and book that. This is more advanced than any chatbots we've had previously. So some of you might have Alexa, some of you might have Siri, or Google. This is context aware. This is real natural language communication with the backend. And I want to show you how easy that is to actually do. If it's going to work this time. So in this case, I'm going to create two things. I'm going to create a knowledge base and I'm going to create an agent. And I created a different demo for you afterwards, which I can show you, which actually gives it access to the internet. So it's pretty simple. You can either use a base that exists already, a knowledge base. In this case, I'm going to create a new one. So no programming is really needed. You go ahead and say what your knowledge base's name is. You give it a link to what we call S3. That's our simple storage service. Inside there is all your documents. So you give it access to the documents. You can choose, in this specific version, 3 different types of databases. We've got more now. We even make this easier, so we have one-click deployment. You don't have to pick it. Once you've selected it, we now will go and ingest all that data that's in that environment. And then what we can do is we can link that to an agent. And again, you do all this with English. So I can go ahead and say, okay, let me create this agent. I give it a name. So I'm going to select a model. You can select from our range of models on Bedrock. In this case, we're selecting Titan from Amazon. And then we say, you're an agent. You need to be helpful. You need to go and look at this document and report back on any information you need to answer a question. So we can also go ahead and ask it. We can say, what is the latest? So this is, what is the latest with the South African elections? So if I go ahead and say show trace, so you can actually see what this thing is doing, right at the bottom, it's trying to understand my ask. So it's saying, it's asking me, the user is asking for the latest information on the South African election. It seems to be a request for information that could potentially be gathered off the internet. So now what it's doing is it's gone to Google. It's running its own search queries. It's going to come back and find answers. And if we skip ahead, it's already said, 2024 South African general election was held on this date. The ANC won with 46% of the vote. And so it goes on and does that. So now you can give this thing tools. So it's on its own, gone onto the internet, found answers, and come back and given me a synopsis. This is super powerful, but you can do some other really cool things with it. So I'm going to show you one more, and then I'll go back to the presentation. So the 2 documents I want to show you is a 1997 letter from our founder, Jeff Bezos, shareholders letter, as well as a letter from 2023 from our newest CEO, Andy Jassy. And so I'll show you this very quickly. Okay, thank you. Hopefully you can see that. So what we're doing now is we're asking it 2 specific things. We're asking it, go find a letter that was written by Jeff Bezos off the internet. It's going to find it, it's going to read it, it's going to understand it. It's then going to go fetch another letter by Andy Jassy. It's going to find it, it's going to read it, it's going to understand it. And then it's going to compare the 2 using generative AI. So you can see here that it says, or not done yet. If we look at the trace, it'll tell you that this is what you want me to go do. It wants me to find the difference between these 2. And it should come back very soon with the answer. So this is a bit slow because I don't have provision throughput, so you can actually pay extra for faster throughput. But we'll give it a few seconds. So there we go. So you can see that it says Jeff Bezos' original letter was optimistic. It was a long-term potential for an online commerce company, much like the startups we have in the EIP. Very optimistic. Customer experience, selection, investing aggressively in the growth and future of the company, compared to Andy Jassy's, where he talks about profitability, the future, but still very optimistic. And he says that Amazon needs to focus on financial discipline, operating efficiencies, and so on. So you can see we grew from a startup to a very mature company. And this is going to, I think, change the world. So imagine taking this technology and embedding it in every single application. I think things are going to change very, very differently to what we have today. And just in closing, if you want to get involved and you want to try this out, there's a few places you can go. So the first thing is I would recommend finding the best use case. So I think you can embed this in every application, but if you're interested in an inspiration, we have a place that you can go to. It's the AI Explorer, Amazon, or aws.amazon.com. There are tons of examples here that you can use, and maybe you find some new features and functionality that you want to embed in your own application. The second thing I want to call out is you need to obviously understand how to do this. So it is really easy, it's natural language, but if you're still not sure, we have a number of training available on Skill Builder, over 600 free courses that you can do today. So go try that out. You can even understand the maths behind machine learning. And so it's not all just AWS. There's quite a lot of cool content there. And then we have some free courses through Coursera that are, again, not AWS specific. So go sign up, you can try them out. You only have to pay if you want the certificate, but you can still do the course at no charge. So that's me. I've got some QR codes with additional things if you want to. You can get started on Bedrock today. There's a free tier. And I'm hoping to see this embedded in your applications. Thank you.